All right, so this next section, it's going to be everything you need to know about speed reading. So I'm just going to dive in because this is going to be fire, and you're probably going to replay this a couple times. But it's better to be effective than to be efficient. It's better to be effective than to be efficient. Things like understanding how to apply something to your life. Like that's understanding that concept from your reading. How can I apply this to my life is effective. Again, it's better to be effective than efficient. So I would say these 5 things I'm about to talk about are less important to take notes on, more so for you to just like understand. But he talked about the 5 reasons that we read slowly. And he says we get these all from school. Number 1 is regressions, which means looking backwards to the left instead of forwards to the text. And then we go 1 step forward, 2 steps back on repeat. So you've got to train your eyes. Train your eyes. That's why I use a pen. But he found that most readers from school reread 50% of what they just read because of regressions. Number 2 is subvocalization. That's hearing words in your head as we read them. This slows us down and caps our reading speed. Basically, the speed that we can speak in our head isn't very fast. So subvocalization slows readers down. Number 3, small fixations. Instead of using our peripheral vision, we take one word at a time or parts of words. Our eyes work by taking pictures with the mind. So basically, small fixations is like every word by word. But our mind can see a whole sentence. So that's why when you read with the pen, it's just like a lot more smooth. Number 4, the 4th reason why we read slowly because of school, because of time between fixations. Our eyes pause between every second, and you want to decrease that pause. And number 5 is lack of focus. The human mind is so powerful when we are in the zone. When we're not focused and our mind drifts, reading speed suffers. So here's some solutions. This is what I would take notes on. Solutions to regressions. So this is the first reason why we read slowly was regressions. So here's a solution to that. Make sure your eyes are always moving forward. Make sure your eyes are always moving forward. Break the tendency to go backwards. And you've got to do this actively and proactively. You've got to do this actively and proactively. Number 2 is subvocalization. So that's when you hear the words in your head as you read them. Here's your solution. Train your brain to take words visually, because your brain takes visuals immediately, but audio slowly. Yeah. Number 3, small fixations. So how to fix that problem from our reading habits from school? You want to train your eyes to take in 3 or 4 words at a time, or chunk words. You want to chunk words. Fourth one, time between fixations. So how do we reduce the time between fixations? You want to take in information and process it more quickly so you can process the next chunk of words. Keep eyes moving quickly. So basically just keep your eyes moving quickly. And that's going to reduce your time between fixations. And number 5, I would say 100% is the most important one. Why read slowly is because of a lack of focus. So how do we have a solution? You need me to repeat one? No? Okay. Focus. So how do we fix that problem from school? Well, number 1, number one solution is to read at a desk. Or he says read standing. Try that one if you want. But yeah, lack of focus. So read at a desk or standing. Get rid of all of your other distractions when you read. Your phone. Like, do not disturb. With the new iOS 14, you could put on bedtime mode. So at midnight, my phone will turn off all notifications. Well, like I'll still get them, but I won't see them. If I look at my phone, it will show no notifications because it's on bedtime mode. And my phone won't light up when I get a text or anything like that. Bedtime mode. That's a good mode. That's a good reading mode. But don't read in your bed. Read in uninterrupted time. Read in uninterrupted time. Do not multitask. Also realize that reading is an active process. It's not passive. Your reading will be more interesting when you're reading actively. It's going to keep your mind from drifting. So don't view it as a task or something that you have to do. You get to read. You get to learn. You get to be educated. Yeah. Here's 2 specific things to improve your reading speed. 2 specific things to improve your reading speed. Separate reading and drilling. Most people say, oh, just read faster than you're comfortable. Wrong. Because reading is a time for understanding. Don't give up understanding. So use a pen to lead your eyes along to instantly be faster. He talked about the average reader reads from 200 to 250 words per minute. The upper limit to that is 900 words per minute. That was because they really focus on all the things that we talked about today. So that was number 1. Number 2 is eye training. So here's how you do eye training. First, step 1, spend 10 minutes reading with the pen trick. Read with the pen, 10 minutes. And then set a timer for 5 minutes. So number 1, spend 10 minutes reading with the pen trick, however much you read in 10 minutes with the pen trick. Then set a timer for 5 minutes. After that, do the same reading in 5 minutes. Basically, read twice as fast. He says comprehension isn't an issue. And then he says spend first 10 minutes of reading normally. Then the second 5, drilling, which is when you do it twice as fast. Then he says 35 or so back to reading. 35 or so back to reading. He says this develops comprehension.
What does that mean? 35 or so? 35 or so what? 35 minutes?
Yeah. He says eye training will address all 5 problems from above. He brought upon a resource. There's an online tool called accelerator.com. ACCELAREADER.com. I'm going to drop it in the chat box. Accelerator.com. Basically, what you want to do with this, you want to copy and paste articles in there, and it will make the chunks bigger. You can make it 3 or 4 words at a time, and then that will gradually increase your speed. He says, develop the skill of selective reading first, then speed reading. So don't be like, oh, I got to speed read. Focus on selective reading first, then speed reading. And then we're going to do some FAQ. So if any of these FAQs hit you and you're just like, oh, yeah, that's what I had. I had that question. I had to write it down. So I'm going to go through them, and give me a thumbs up if you're like, I'm good on that one, or give me a thumb to the side if you want me to repeat the answer. So question he got is, what if I miss something important? And he says, most books are structured to highlight the most important parts without having to read. That means the words might be bolded or they might be in italics. Those will be the big ideas. It's okay if you miss an important part. All that matters is you read most of the important parts. The goal is not to have a lot of big ideas. It's better to get stuff to take action on or to see the world in a different way. He also says it's better to spend 20% of the time and get 80% of the ideas so you can read more books in the same amount of time. It's the 80-20 rule, so like I talked about before. Said it's better to read 20% of the time and get 80% of the ideas so you can read more books in the same amount of time than it is to read 100% and get very little out of every book. Or no, than to get every little thing out of the book. Question number 2 that I had for his FAQs is, how can I get through really long books in just one day? He says the goal, number 1 goal is learning and constantly be learning. It doesn't have to be a book a day. Sometimes 1 book, sometimes 2, sometimes half a book. We're going to spend some time on Atomic Habits, so don't be like, oh, we're reading this in one day. No. I really want you guys to suck everything you can out of that book. He says 95% of the books can be read in an hour. I was like, what? Yeah, same. He talked about Trump's book on how to get rich. He said, we'll spend first 3 hours of the day reading relevant to job, how to type stuff, at night ideas, and grades of history. Oh, okay. So basically, from the book, he learned that Trump will spend the first 3 hours of his day reading things that are relevant to his work. And then at night, he'll read about ideas and the greats of history. So that was something he mentioned. But he says, focus on how 2 books in the morning to get to your 1 book a day, if that's your goal. If you have spare time or if you want to read at night, longer books in 3 to 7 days. Schedule to read long books during travel time. So when you can do an audiobook and listen in the car to make it go 1.5 times or 2 times the speed. He says the size of the book shouldn't determine the amount of time spent reading it. The goal is to extract and take a few things to get towards your goals. In really big books, there will probably be a lot of fillers. A lot of irrelevant things. He said he'll read a 1,000-page book in 2 or 3 days. Not 2 to 3 weeks. Next question he got was, how do I make sure my learning leads to action? And he mentioned a quote by Peter Drucker. The quote is, results are obtained by exploiting opportunities. By exploring opportunities, not by solving problems. Results are obtained by exploring opportunities, not by solving problems. It says it's better to go 0 to 100 than to go -20 to 0. Ask yourself these questions. What's my purpose or goal in life right now? And then you want to ask yourself, does this help me move closer to my goal and help me hit my dreams? When you're reading, then you'll learn and that will lead to action. He says, what about for fiction books? What can I do? He says you can still use the pen trick. He said, read at your desk. And he says, skip excessive descriptions. Now, how is this different than speed reading? Well, that was the question you got. And he says, you're reading the most important things that contribute the most to your life. The only real trick is the pen trick. Don't be scared of missing something. Be okay if you miss something. Because if you've always got that fear of, oh, I'm going to miss something important, you're going to read cover to cover, every single word, and it's going to take you forever. And then someone's like, hey, can I just read a lot of articles on that topic? And he says, well, he wrote down, or he put on his video, Ryan Holiday wrote something called Trust Me, I'm Lying. And he says that articles are good at putting things in perspective. The article's goal is to get clicks. Articles don't give you the depth that will really resonate with you. Someone asked, why can't I just read book summaries? He says, because when you read, you make a custom book summary that applies to you. Context matters. Main ideas won't stick without everything. And he says, when you find it yourself, you ingrain it in your mind. And he's like, ask yourself this question: who learns better? The person who reads the summary or the person who made the summary? Made, exactly. So that should help you with that. So the person that made the Cliff Notes, the person that made the Cliff or whatever notes, Spark Notes, they're the ones that are learning.
Will you repeat the quote, when you find it yourself, and then so on?
Yeah. Why can't I just read book summaries? That one?
Yeah, just like the one quote. It's like when you find it yourself, then blank.
Yeah, when you find it yourself, you ingrain it in your mind.
You create like
Thank
a
you.
custom, like I think that's what she's talking about.
Yeah. When you read, you make a custom book summary that applies to you. And the next question you got was, can this help me get a career? Can this help me get a career? He says, college sets you up for mediocrity. And then he mentioned Oscar Wilde's quote, everything popular is wrong. Earl Nightingale said this quote as well that applied to it. Said, look at what the majority of people are doing and do the exact opposite. And you'll probably never go wrong for as long as you live. I like that one. Earl Nightingale. Look at what the majority of people are doing and do the exact opposite. And you'll probably never go wrong for as long as you live. And they also mentioned Mark Twain's quote, whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to repeat it. Mark Twain. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. I know, fire. Mark Twain. We appreciate you. Mark Twain. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. And then the last thing he wrapped up with, and I'll close out the recording. Conventional wisdom isn't the right thing to do if you want to strive for something above mediocrity. Conventional wisdom isn't the right thing to do if you want to strive for something above mediocrity. So you got to think outside the box. But that will conclude this section on everything you need to know about speed reading, plus some FAQs. Hope you enjoyed. Comment, like, subscribe.